Welcome to the Trademark Life podcast. And today I have my friend Deb Duncan.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Share where you do your business. Where can people find Deb Duncan?
They can find me. So I work with my husband, Craig Adam, and we have the Craig Adam Real Estate team under Remax Crown Real Estate here in Regina.
Thank you for saying yes. I felt like you were going to have to think about it too long or something.
Well, it makes you nervous, but I'm excited.
It's just a combo.
That's right.
It's just a combo
With
between friends. Deb's in a group that I started with Caitlin. If Caitlin's podcast is first, you will hear about that. But I actually was the one that picked you for the group, Deb.
Well, I'm so grateful. As you know, I think I tell you every time we're together.
You're like, I love the group.
I do. It's just so awesome.
She said, Caitlin's so funny with her words, and she's like wild and funny, but she was like, let's pick people that we want to get to know and that intimidate us.
Oh my God.
And I was like, Deb Duncan, I feel like she knows it all. I was like, I want to learn from Deb Duncan.
Well, that's both a compliment and I don't know.
No, it was a compliment.
I was intimidating.
To me, if someone was the realtor in the city that you were hold the highest respect, I had you.
Oh my God.
And I just wanted to learn. I feel like you have so much knowledge that you can share with me and people. So I was like, we have to have Deb.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So one of our first things that we did in our Bridging the Gap group was kind of share how we got into real estate. And when I heard you shared, and I was like, I have got to get Deb on the podcast because I felt like it was, well, I'll let you share the story of where you had a background in finance and analyst and all these things. And now you're a realtor, and I feel like it's you have so much knowledge that you bring to real estate, but in a totally different way than what other people bring.
Yeah, it's true. I do think that I've brought something different to the career.
Mm-hmm.
I work with my husband, Craig Adam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely part of it. But how I got into it was I have my Bachelor of Commerce, right? And I went through a finance degree, later got my CFA, my Chartered Financial and Analyst designation, which, it's a very difficult 3-year designation to get. And there's probably only 2 realtors, I think, in the world who actually have it.
Oh my
I've
gosh.
met one of them. There's not many realtors who have the CFA because you'd go and you'd manage.
Okay, so what is the CFA? Dumb it down for me.
Yeah,
because
it's an international financial designation. And basically people who manage pension funds and hedge funds have it. So it's a lot of,
it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
It is hard work. It is hard work. But so after I got my finance degree, I was doing agricultural lending up in northern Alberta. So again, finance. Went and worked for CIBC, finance. Wanted to move back to Saskatchewan. I worked at SAS Power, Saskatchewan Opportunities Corporation. I was in Treasury. And then this is sort of where things took a detour.
Total 180.
Loving my job at SAS Power in Treasury. And then I was headhunted for a different job. I went there, maybe for 6 months and didn't really love it. Again, it was in finance, just a different aspect of what I was doing at SAS Power. And when I'd let the guys know at SAS Power, there was an opportunity for me to go back. But every boss I ever had, right, even when I was just a summer student, they always said, you need to be self-employed. Because I was always just putting in the extra time and caring so much about my job. And Craig was in real estate. Or is in real estate. And I thought, well, he needs help. It was a really busy time in the market. And thought, well, I'll help Craig.
I'm so kind.
And, but once I got into it, I did my exams and it just sort of, my business blossomed very quickly because of my connections to finance and sport. And then I deal with a lot of RCMP. Mm-hmm. And so one RCMP in particular came to me because of other connections. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. And so I've been fortunate.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that. I had goosebumps. I was like, we hear so many people oh, I love design, or I love decor. I love the people side of it. And I was like, the finance side of it. That is so interesting. So you being a finance background, do you find that you are the best person at doing like a market comparable? Like do you love the research and like all the like diving into the data and seeing all that? Because I feel like you'd be someone that has like the facts and like, and mine's like emotion. I'm like can go into someone's house, and I do it very much by feel and like more emotion side, but I feel like you'd be very data driven.
Yeah, I'm very data driven and very analytical. There is some obvious emotion to it. I look at that aspect, right? But I always find it a challenge. Like, so say I do an analysis on somebody's home and I don't get the listing. I'm always looking at my data and I'm like, I was right.
What did it sell for?
Yeah,
I was right.
If they overpriced it or underpriced it, and I'm like, I was right.
You knew.
If only you could call and say, I told you so.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see what happens if you did do that. Okay, so what do you have for advice for people that are looking to get into the housing market or in the housing market wanting to move up the property ladder, from your side of like the Deb Duncan real estate side, like the way you think? What would be your tips for people that are looking to get in or move up?
Well, if you're a first-time home buyer, it's important to get your finances in order, right? Like, just don't have a lot of credit card debt, get pre-approved and start the process early. Like, speak to people who are in the industry, like go and speak to your mortgage broker. And if you don't have one, reach out to family or a realtor and ask, like, who do you recommend, right? We have lots of great people that we can recommend. And understand, like, what are you looking for in a house? Like, how do you live? That sort of thing. Like, do you want a condo? Do you want a little house? Like, I find I work with lots of RCMP, so you know what they're after and what's important, because you have to make sure it can resell relatively quickly for them. So you don't want to sell them anything too unique. But if you're a first-time home buyer, are you capable and do you have the time to do the yard work, right? I work with lots of single women, right, of various ages. Like, I've worked with a lot of women who are 50 years old and they're buying their first home. And they might want to be close to downtown, but is a older 2-story really the right house for them? If they're wanting to get a cute little character house, maybe a bungalow, because those are a little bit easier to maintain than an old 2-story. So looking at that, like, just starting your research early.
Love it.
Yeah.
And for people that are in their home, I know you love to educate people on things they can do to keep their property value up.
Exactly.
That is something that you've said before that you were passionate about. Share a bit about why and things that you look for as a realtor when you go into people's house.
Yeah, when I'm working with my clients, I've once was called the dream crusher, which I actually take pride, because I didn't want my client to get into a money pit, right? And just being very realistic. I'm very realistic. And when I'm showing someone a house, I'm pointing out both the good and the bad. And so when there's a home, so if we make it to that point where we write an offer, for the most part, I would say, at least 75% of the items that a home inspector spells out, I have already mentioned it to them, so it's not a surprise. Like, is it a dirty window or a broken seal in that window? Especially grading, like, with our heavy gumbo soil, and working again with people who are out of province, our soil conditions are so unique.
Everyone's so shocked.
Right? And then they don't believe you that, the little slope in the floor is normal, or a little crack, and they'll want to bring in a structural engineer. And again, I told you so. But, obviously you're looking for deflection. And then if the property hasn't been already remediated with bracing, you're pointing that out. Like, you don't want to get them into a situation that they can't afford, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you might have to bring in a structural engineer if it's somebody who does want to buy that property and maybe the footings have dropped, but is it, can they afford that? I'm always worried about people's finances, right?
That's your finance background. But you truly care about your clients.
I do.
I love that about you. I feel that's something we can connect on, is that we truly care that our clients aren't getting in over their head or signing up for something that they, I don't want surprises down the road for my clients either. So just educating them. That's my new home background side that I use. But I know on the finance side, just making sure someone can afford now and future.
Yeah, I've pulled back many people who are just maxing out, right? They said, oh, I'm pre-approved for 600,000, right? And they're a young couple and maybe they're just getting married and they're going to have a couple kids down the road. They forget, like, you're not going, when you go on mat leave, you're not going to have 100% of your income.
Yeah.
And even like the last few years, people who were maxing out, and I'm like, okay, well, in 5 years, rates are not going to be at 2%. And they'd think I was crazy. Well, when you renew, can you afford a 5 or 6% mortgage? Like, even take it out to 7%.
Yeah.
You know, like when I worked at the bank at CIBC, like I think rates were, I don't know, 7 or 8%, but people could afford homes. But it shocks me sometimes because they might have credit cards that they're paying 25%, and you're most worried about your mortgage at
7,
4 or 5 or 6,
Yeah.
right? You know, sometimes people's perspectives are a little bit off, and I like to try to help them with
You
that.
can be a financial counselor
Yeah,
to your clients.
Yeah, well, real estate, you're a counselor.
Yeah.
You're emotional, and
Yeah, you are. You're all the things. You are a package. Do you have a favorite spot of the city? Do you have I know where you live now, but do you have a favorite neighborhood that you're like, this is home? Or if you weren't in the one you're in now, do you have one that you try to put clients into?
Yeah, well, there's a few. Like, I love Lakeview because that's where I live. I like South Regina because that's where the majority of my family lives, like Albert Park, you know, that area. I really love Maple Ridge. It reminds me of the neighborhood I grew up in, North Battleford, and it was a new up-and-coming neighborhood, young families. And when I go and show homes there, you see the kids out in the park with their dad, and he's batting the ball up and the kids running and catching
like a
it.
movie.
Or there's this one house on the corner and there's all these bikes all the time, and you'll see the kids disperse, and it's just like, I love it.
That's
I just
amazing.
love that neighborhood. And Richmond Place. I also like Richmond Place. I
That's
like
a treasure in there.
You know, I like the paths and the houses, and it's got a really nice feel. And then you can walk, you know, not very far, and you got a view of the Wascana Golf Course.
Yep.
So it's got a really nice feel. We have lots of great neighborhoods,
do
but
have
those
good
are
neighborhoods.
just some of my favorites that are close
Those
to
are
my
ones I
heart.
wouldn't have said. So I do like that because it's a little different than like, oh, I love the creeks, or I love like the greens, or, you know, those
Yeah, and I do love the creeks.
Yeah.
I have the beautiful homes, right?
Yeah.
And,
But that's like new Richmond Place.
that's right. You know,
I love the old Richmond Place because each house I find is different.
Yeah.
That's like where like the custom homes started in those neighborhoods,
Yeah.
where like it's not cookie cutter. They're really cool. People did unique exteriors in the 90s where I'm like, wow, you were super creative. And it's like so timeless in those neighborhoods. You can buy it today and it still looks perfect.
Well, I know, and all the brick, right? I love the brick, you know, and it's so expensive now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's I think that's why it's one of my favorite neighborhoods too, because you can build that, but like it's so much money to build today.
I know.
So if you can buy that and get in those little treasures and just like remodel it,
Yeah.
it's perfect.
Oh yeah, like remodeling. Like how many times you drive down a street and you see the big dumpster?
Yep.
You know.
So hopefully it's one of ours there. So you work with your husband.
I do.
I work with my husband.
Yeah.
How do you guys balance your work life together?
Oh, it's not easy.
I'm like, please tell me how. Please tell me.
It's very difficult.
Nicole's laughing because she also works with her husband.
Well, interested enough, like, I definitely have, I think, a stronger personality than him. He's a bit more tolerant than me. I'm very lucky. But, you know, I remember when I got into the business, and Gary Cassette's our broker, and he worked with his wife until she passed. And he always said, you know, you got to make sure you carve out time for yourself and not talk about business all the time over the dinner table. And I wouldn't say we're overly successful with that, because, you know, so much happens throughout the day. We don't sit beside each other and work. So I think that's a blessing. Like, we really don't see each other very much, right? During the day. And, but I bet if you were to look at my phone, we probably talk or text 20 times a day. There's always something, you know, and, you know, can you cover me on this? Or what do you think about this? But it's a challenge. And even when we go on vacation, like, we try to, you know, go golfing in the morning, but then you still probably talking about work, right? You're picking up phone calls and that sort of thing. So it's hard to carve out that just personal time where you're not talking about work, like when we're doing yard work, maybe,
Oh, but you have such a good support system in that too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Can't imagine not working with James, but I also want to kill him sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Craig and I have a different perspective. Like, and he cares, but I care so much and I get so emotional sometimes, right? And I think guys just have a different perspective and they, and he always says, don't give anyone permission to ruin your day, right? It's good advice, but I hate when he says that.
Yeah, because you're like, easier said than done because you care.
That's right. Don't be so philosophical. I hate it.
What do you see the next year for your business?
The next year? Well, I think we're going to continue to be very busy, we're very fortunate. Sometimes I wish it would be more balanced, but we can't pick and choose. But I think the Regina market is going to continue to be very busy. Sadly, we lack inventory and, more and more people are coming. Our economy is growing. It's putting definite pressure on like people buying. It's great for sellers, but then even for people who want to sell, where are they going to go, right? You think about people who are nearing retirement. We need more homes for them to buy that aren't the 2-story, they're split level or that sort of thing, right? That are affordable as well. And so I think we're going to be busy. We're going to continue to be busy. And we have a good group that we work with. And again, we're fortunate.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much for saying yes and coming on the podcast. It was amazing to have you. And I hope you'll come back.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yes, you bet.